Blended Podcasts. Brought to you by Blended Audio.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Sound Vibes. I'm Nate. This is Patty McD. Speak.
Okay. Yeah, well, I think the last episode we ran out of time, and it's like, we better hasten this.
Yeah, we're just like, oh no, speed it up, and we're out of time. Damn it.
Yeah.
Well, today we're going to carry on with the topic that we were getting into discussing the previous episode last week, and that is strategy around your media.
Your DIY.
Your
media.
DIY media. See?
Yeah.
See, DIY media is so important if you have no money like me.
Yeah, but it's good that you say media in general, but because let's face it, you need a strategy when you're at a more pro level as well. But I think when you're at that level, you already know what we're going to be talking about now.
Yes.
Because once you start paying for your media people to do the work for you, you need to see a return on that investment.
Yeah, like I'm saving the pennies now for it because I'm getting ready because I'm tired, man. I'm tired.
Yeah.
I need some help, man.
But at the moment, we're still at DIY level, which is why Nate is so tired.
I'm so like the topic itself is very exhausting because I know the processes.
Yeah.
I know the 3 a.m. stories and the media and the constant editing.
Yeah.
And spell checks.
Yeah.
Do you guys do your spell checks?
Oh, yes, please.
Please do your spell checks. I'm tired of reading stuff and I'm seeing, like, I'm not...
Yeah, but you know what? That's actually the job of the editor well.
Look, I'm not an outward grammar Nazi. I used to be when I was younger, but I've discovered that it's just not worth it. So I just keep it inside now. It's my inside voice, but it still frustrates me.
Yeah.
Frustrates me.
Yeah. All right, let's quickly recap where we left off last week. So we were talking about media, the DIY approach.
Yes.
How can you do it yourself? And we covered two very key points, which was number one is content.
Yeah.
You need to have content, and it needs to be of a reasonable, at the very least, a reasonable quality. So make sure you have good visual content as well, because people aren't going to immerse themselves in your business if it doesn't look good at like that first split second.
Yeah.
The second major point was find your language. Like, what is your creative output all about? And then match that. Like, if it's going to be edgy, keep the language edgy. If it's going to be sophisticated, keep the language sophisticated, so on and so forth.
Consistency is key.
Absolutely. So the third big point I wanted to get to in the whole DIY thing is strategy. Yeah. Because at the end of the day, this is the most important thing. And I think we kind of brushed over, like you had a few questions right at the beginning. I was like, hold on, Nate.
Yeah, you had to stop me because I'm bursting out the gate with those really...
And it's like, that is the bigger picture.
Yes.
And that is strategy.
That's all I'm about, is the bigger picture.
Yeah. All right, so... we were saying, well, last time we wanted to use a hypothetical situation.
Yes.
So that was, okay, your band has recorded an album, this thing's ready to go, you're very eager to share it with the public, and you think just posting on Facebook and Instagram is having done your work. And I think a lot of bands get very despondent when they do all this work, all this effort on creating this, well, what we all like to believe is a masterpiece, and no one cares.
No one cares because no one can see it because you haven't got it out there because you haven't done your PR homework.
Yeah.
Basically.
Yeah. So, as Nate points out, not all of us have the budget.
Yep.
So we have to ask ourselves, how are we going to achieve maximum reach with this output so that hopefully we can accumulate money and have a budget for the next one?
Yes, please save me, help.
Yeah. So, if you're doing an album, we see a lot of bands get attention, and often we're like, how come they get the attention and we didn't? And usually it's because they had a strategy. They looked for the attention.
Yes.
So my advice is, if you're working on an album, or you're nearing completion, or you have completed it and you're eager to share it with the public, be patient. Stop right now with that ambition to click share and then think that everyone's going to go, wow,
Strategize first before you
Yes.
click share. Strategize
Yes.
first before you say, all right, we've got the masters. We should go live with this right now.
Yeah.
No.
So think about how the big international guys do it. You find that typically when they finish recording an album, and when I say recording, I don't mean sitting in the studio. I mean it's already gone for mixing and mastering and all that kind of stuff.
When the product is
Like,
complete.
This thing is ready to hit the shelves.
Yeah.
At that stage, it's still going to take roughly 3 months. Well, it depends on the record label or whoever's handling that release, but typically at least 3 months.
It's 3 months for if you're working with a PR agent or if you're going through a PR company, whatever the case is. They need at least a minimum of 3 months just to check out and then see if everything is groovy and what they can do with it. You know, they need that time because they have so much content from so many different providers.
Well, yes and no. The point is, your finished product is what's actually going to sell the product, if that makes sense.
Right.
So let me unpack that a bit. What you said is true. Yes, record labels are usually handling a volume of material, but more important is record labels understand the importance of strategy.
Okay.
So when they have the finished product, they know that they can keep to a release schedule. So now they can publish a release date. But if they're publishing a release date and the product is not actually finished, then there's a very strong possibility that they're going to miss that deadline. And that's never good.
Yeah.
So finished product, then you begin your rollout strategy. So when your product is finished, and let's say you give yourself 3 months, now you announce your release date. And I think a big problem we see in the South African bands is we talk about a release date, but it's very seldom met. And that's kind of understandable because we all work day jobs and, you know, no one can really give this thing the full attention, or money just runs out, you know, like other life expenses come up and, we have to postpone things because we want to pay for the services, mixing and mastering and all that jazz. So, it's kind of erratic. And we let our fans down when we make them promises and we don't deliver. So the best practice is develop a strategy which says, first thing, finish the work. Second thing, plan a rollout schedule. So when your product is finished, only then announce a release date, but don't announce it for like tomorrow or next week.
No, announce it for months at a time.
Yeah.
It gives you time to generate hype. It gives you time to get singles out with music videos, lyric videos, all that kind of stuff.
You've said the magic word, generate hype.
Yes.
So how does one do that? And you've just rattled off a list of exactly how to do that. So a good practice is, well, at least in my experience, a really good practice is announce your release date and show off the artwork.
Yeah.
And, now we go back to content and visual quality. That artwork's got to be rad. Like a lot of bands take the DIY approach on artwork as well, which is fine if you're skilled in that. But I still see a lot of work which is a bit, not great. And I mean, my own band has been very guilty of that as well.
Sure.
Whereas I think we're moving into a time and space where having access to high quality artworks at not the worst price is possible.
Very possible.
Yeah, and
you got guys up in Indonesia like doing it for like $20.
yeah.
Something crazy. These are just like random spitballs, but I mean the prices are not expensive.
Yeah. So invest in an artwork if you're not satisfied with what you're able to put out, within your own social sphere of influence. Be that another band member or a close friend or whatever. But notwithstanding, when you have a finished album, yes, release your artwork with a date for the full album. Because now people are like, wow, that looks great. I can't wait to see what it or hear what it sounds like. Because with that visual captivation, you've engaged your audience in a very expedient way. So what you can then do is perhaps a week or two after that, once the excitement has sort of simmered down, now you release a single or a music video or some kind of audio content
Audio visual is good if you can afford it, but
If
I
you
mean,
can afford it, yeah.
if you can't do audio visual and you can just do audio, I think another thing that works is just do just the album art, plug it there with the song title and like all the available channels, and then maybe the release date.
Yeah.
Once you have it, all compiled and confirmed.
And you stick it on YouTube. Like a lot of people put their video only on Facebook because they know that it gets more social traction, which is true. But they're bypassing the Google factor.
Yeah, Google owns YouTube, therefore you need to be on Google search. It's vital, absolutely vital.
So when you release something that's video related, release it on Facebook and YouTube.
And Instagram.
Yeah, granted.
Yeah, definitely.
So
Stories is where it's at now.
Yeah, because a lot of bands say, "Oh, well, we've posted on Facebook and that's fine." Oh, what a dead end. So when you release your album artwork and your release date, get in touch with some of the local media outlets. Get in touch with Metal for Africa if you're doing metal, or if you're not doing metal, find out which blogs or webzines or whatever.
Like Pure Grain Audio is another one. Text in the City.
Text in the City are great.
Yeah.
So there's so many outlets that you can use if you've just done your homework. So that should be part of your strategy. It is to say which content distributors actually cater to our audience.
Yeah.
And then approach them. And, content distributors are like machines. They need fuel, and that fuel is content.
And
so
you got to be good content.
Yeah.
Going back to that content.
Yeah. So if you have good content, the distributors of content are very eager to be the first, or sometimes even the exclusive carriers of your content. Personally, I don't think the exclusive plan is a good one, but that depends on the outlet. But that's a chat for another day. The thing is, for the DIY, you want as long a list as possible of content distributors. So when you do your Facebook post, make sure that you've also sent an email to all of these content distributors. Even better if you've approached them a little bit in advance.
And they've responded.
You tell them, we plan to release this on so-and-so date, and we have a release schedule for this sequence of dates. Because now these content distributors are like, this is good. This is something that we can ride for the duration of its, see the process through.
Yeah.
From this moment to the actual release, which is the big moment. And what you've done there is you've then also established a very strong rapport with those content distributors. But if you go there and just say, we're releasing something, help us. I will indulge.
I've done that.
Yeah, look, yep. I will indulge metal bands when they come and ask that, because that is my mandate as metalforafrica.com, and I'm funded by the community. So I kind of have an obligation, but my model of operation is not the same as the usual. The usual is these outlets depend on sales of advertisements.
Yeah.
So they're not going to come and wipe your bum for you. I tend to do that a lot, but if I've got a very busy schedule, then the more bum I have to wipe, the less inclined I am to do that.
That is such a crazy analogy.
Sorry. But if I have a lull and I don't have a lot of content, yes, then I'm more than willing to work harder to help those bands get better content.
Because you're Pat and you're nice.
Because I'm Pat.
Yep.
So, strategy is saying we have a schedule, a series of dates, and on each date we're going to let drip this extra piece of content. And at the end of the day, by the time your album arrives for the public, it's almost like a relief. It's like a catharsis. It's like, yes, it's here. Because they've been following this progress. So start with an artwork reveal and a date announcement, then do a single, then a music video or a lyric video.
Even if it takes you a year.
The
build-up is worth it.
But the thing is, make sure that you stick to your promises as best you can. Because there's nothing that takes the wind out of the sails more than a postponement or just a no-show. Sometimes bands set a date and the date comes and goes and they haven't said anything. That's bad as well.
Yeah.
So, strategy. Strategy is about the bigger picture and a timeline with dates and action to be on those dates. So sometimes an album release can also mean, a couple of shows. So you want people to attend those shows. So the whole point of all of this is that your band is a conversation piece out there in the public space. So when people get together at metal shows and they hang around other metalheads. All right, sorry, I'm speaking in the metal context again, but whatever your genre is, when the people of your market interest get together and they're talking about what's new, what's happening, and if your band is a conversation piece, like, that's a win. That is what you want. That is your goal.
Yes.
Is to be a conversation piece. Because when that album comes, everyone wants to be at the launch. It's going to be the place to be.
Of course.
Yeah, so let's use perhaps another example.
All right.
All right, so I'm going to talk a bit about me now and our experience. And I'm going to talk about it because the results could be seen. And for me, it was also a first time putting a lot of hypothetical knowledge into practice and then seeing the results. So here's for bands who maybe you've already released quite a bit of material, and maybe you've got a local following and you're satisfied with that. But now you're casting your nets wider. Maybe you're going to go overseas.
Okay.
So it's not uncommon these days for a South African band to be playing abroad. In fact, it's like pretty normal now.
I think even more so now than it ever has been.
Yeah.
Especially within our circles. There's so many of our bands now that are going up and are killing it overseas.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And just looking at their PR work and their strategies, you can see it. It's as clear as day.
It depends on who you're talking about. So we've seen success stories and we've seen disappointments. So if we talk about success stories, we talk about bands who are going overseas regularly.
Yes.
And it's because there's a demand for them.
Because they've created such.
Yeah. But we find that a lot of South African bands unfortunately go overseas, play a few shows, and it's a great experience. It's obviously worth having.
And they come back and then they're back to playing the local pubs.
Yes.
Yep.
So the question we have to ask is what has been the failure there? Because these are bands who are, generally good. They wouldn't have made it that far if they weren't worthy of those kinds of shows.
Great musicianship, great stage presence, great performance, but then when it comes down to the business aspect of it and the media, they fall short.
Yes. So me being a media-orientated person, but my realm has been mostly local.
Yeah.
So in 2016, the doors opened for me to travel abroad as a performer. So I was like, right, now I get to put to test all of this knowledge that I think I have, as far as media goes.
Yeah.
So in our case, we were booked to play a festival in Romania.
Yes.
So, it's a fascinating country, but it's a country which we don't hear a lot about. We don't know much about their metal scene, as a South African market. So, my immediate impulse is, right, we need a strategy. Because that's just who I am and how I work. So, we had about, I think it was 5 months preparation time before playing the show. So we obviously take care of the technical stuff and the visas and blah, 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 blah. But for me, my primary focus was, look, as far as performance and all that goes, we know our business. We know that we're going to go and deliver a quality performance and all that jazz. But how are we going to get people to care? Because now we're playing a festival where our time slot as Minor Salt was wedged between Insomnium and Soilwork on a different stage.
Now, for those of you listening who are not familiar with metal, those two are very, very popular bands in the Europe scene.
Yeah, like, and they similar in many ways to our genres in that they're like melodic. So it's like, but they are established.
Proper established, yeah.
Whereas we are the unknown guys. So now we're on a stage on the other side of the festival, wedged between those guys. How are we going to make ourselves to the Romanian public seem as though we are as worthy of their attention as those two bands?
So what did you do?
This was the challenge. So the first thing I did was to see, do I know anybody in Romania?
Okay.
And the answer to that was yes.
Oh.
Yeah. Well, there was one person, he was our South African contact who facilitated the booking of the show.
Oh, right.
But his knowledge of media was zero. But what he could do was he could inquire on our behalf.
Okay.
So I asked him, dude, find us who is it who talks about metal music in that territory. So he gave me recommendations of 2 online radio stations, and I contacted them. Then I also went onto Facebook, and there's a lot of local groups focused on national scenes. Like in South Africa, we have the South African Metal Community Facebook group, and there's actually probably at least a dozen. Not only groups, but also, blogs and media outlets, people who like to talk about music. And these people all have a following, sometimes small, sometimes quite big. So I compiled a list of all of these ones which I could find. And I spent weeks compiling this list. But at the end of the day, I had a list as long as my arm of prospective distributors of content. You see where we're going with this?
Yeah, I see exactly where you're going with that, yeah.
And then I created content and I sent it to them. And look, it's a lot of hit and miss. But because you find that a lot of these people, they feel, it's not suitable. Our website is orientated more towards, black metal and death metal, and this band seems a little bit too thrash, or, they look at the content and they say, it's not relevant to our audience. So they pass it over. In other cases, maybe I sent it to a pop, and they're like, well, we're not doing metal at all. Or maybe you're a pop band and you send to a metal website. It's
different genres, different spheres,
but hit and miss. Sometimes you have the perfect match and they still don't care for whatever reason. But the point is,
I found that a lot.
If you don't have a long list, it's basically a numbers game.
It needs to be endless.
Yeah. So
Can't draw a limit on that.
You just send your stuff. But it has to be compelling content. And when I say compelling content, you have to try and think of the context of, all right, so we want to give these people very close to finished work. In other words, for them, there's not a lot of effort they have to do to share your content. So sometimes you got to look at their style guide. First of all, do they publish in English?
I was going to ask you about that. That language barrier must have been very difficult for you to get through all those distributors. Because, if I'm just a Safa from old Slopstad, and hey, I don't speak Romanian, but here's my shit.
Yeah.
Leave that out.
So what I found was, look, a lot of them do publish in English, which is great.
Yeah.
And it makes it a lot easier because you can send them content which is more or less, done. Yeah. And then they say, oh, well, this is easy. Just, copy, paste, do a bit of light editing and formatting, and off it goes. And they publish your stuff, and their audience eats it up. In other times, if there's going to be more work involved, in other words, they have to translate.
Yeah.
Now, a lot of the time, they're like, oh, we don't have time for that. So they leave it. But if you approach them with a very compelling story, now we being from South Africa, the Romanians are like, what? They don't know that there's metal down this side of the world. As foreign as Romania is to us, South Africa is to them.
Well, the southernmost tip.
Yeah. So when I made my approach, I was like, hi, fascinating story. We're coming from the southern tip of Africa to play in your country, and your readership might be interested in this, because we're playing heavy metal music and you're that kind of site, and we're playing at your biggest national metal festival, and we had quite a high success rate with getting our content translated, and that's a lot of work.
I'd imagine so.
So the story we were putting forward was compelling enough that they took an interest. And anyways, notwithstanding, so we actually got a lot of media coverage. And when we arrived at the festival grounds, we were only playing on the 4th day. But from day 1, people were like, oh, you're the South African band.
So it worked out.
Yeah, it's you got to make your bed to be able to sleep in it kind of thing.
Absolutely.
And basically what happened was when that show happened, it went down well. People were coming into the tent. Even when the other bands were playing, we were still having people staying to watch our performance. And afterwards, the club owners came. And they wanted to know, when are you going back to South Africa? Tomorrow? No, you stay. So I think from a press strategy point of view, a lot of that theoretical knowledge was put to practice and it worked. So you can do DIY. It's absolutely achievable, but it takes effort. And if you do have budget, I'm sure you'd like to pass that on to someone else who, for someone else it might be easier because it's what they do.
Yeah. All right. Well, I just absorbed a whole lot of information. I'm going to go sleep on this. Thank you so much for that insight. This has been a very interesting topic to me personally, and I appreciate it a hell of a lot. And thank you to you guys for listening. It's been a hell of a journey on this PR thing. I think we're going to jump into something fresh in the coming weeks. I think you've heard enough from us. But again, yes, check us out on Blended Audio. It'll be available where all podcasts are available. Yeah. It's been the Patty McD, and I've been the NATE. We'll see you soon. And by see you soon, I mean we'll be in your ear soon with some other stuff. Cool. Cheers, guys.
Thanks for listening.
Thank you so much for listening to us ramble on about all things music and sound here on Sound Vibes, produced with the generous assistance of Blended Podcasts, brought to you by Blended Audio.